Howie Roseman speaks tomorrow in Indianapolis. Zach Berman is here today, ready to fly out there to get answers on Zack Baun and Mekhi Becton and maybe a new quarterbacks coach. And boy, will his arms be tired. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on an actually beautiful Monday afternoon. Bo Wolf, Zach Berman here in studio as he prepares to head off to Indianapolis for the Combine later tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thrilled to be here with you and Julia and excited for the week ahead.
Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni will speak tomorrow, right? Tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow afternoon, it sounds like.
Got a lot of questions that you want to ask. You haven't talked to him since he got hit in the face with a loaded beer.
That's true. Do you think that's going to come up?
Well, I'm actually curious to see the state of the forehead. Aren't you? Like,
I will make sure I get a photo.
It has been, what, 2 weeks? A week
and a
half?
A week and a half.
Given the rawness of it when we last saw it, I don't know. What are you expecting? A scab?
I think it's going to be mostly healed.
You think it's going to be mostly healed?
I
feel like there will be some remnant, don't you?
I saw some photos of him yesterday.
Okay. Could be creepy. Let's find out how creepy.
He appeared, he had an autograph signing at the Oxford Valley Mall.
Okay.
That I was not able to attend.
Oh, interesting.
But the Inquirer was there. And
oh, interesting.
Looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, I see no remnant of it.
Yes.
Actually. Fishy.
So, you think an inside job here?
I don't know. I feel like given how gnarly it looked the day of, I wouldn't have expected it to be completely healed in a week.
Maybe how he heals
Wolverine.
Quickly.
Yeah,
maybe he heals quickly.
Maybe that's the explanation for all of his success.
Well, I mean, he might have been out of town last week. Maybe he had that in a bandage with some.
I thought you were suggesting that he had like a quick surgery to fix it
I
or
mean
something like that.
Some Neosporin and get that thing healed pretty quickly.
In a week? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. Would you expect the whole full thing to be gone in a week?
Well, we'll find out tomorrow.
I mean, it could also just be some makeup.
It could be. Do you think he put makeup on for the signing?
I don't know. Potentially. If he knew that you were going to be sending surreptitious paparazzi to be taking pictures of him.
I got a text on Friday from someone saying, hey, Howie's going to be appearing at the Oxford Valley Mall. But it wasn't to talk to Howie.
You got sparrows everywhere, man.
I wanted to go, but we had, the birthday party circuit we had to go to. Sloan and Rita birthday parties at the same time, so we split it up.
Feels like these kids continue to get in the way of the work that you want to do.
They do, but it's for good reason, right? But anyways, yeah. So Howie. Looking forward to speaking to Howie. Looking forward to speaking to Nick. It's been too long since I had the chance to speak with them. And this is the Combine is the transition from the end of the season to the off season, right? When they speak at the Combine, it's officially off season time. It's not, it's not typically wrapping things up from the season.
I'll always remember at the 2018 Combine, Doug Peterson showing up wearing the Super Bowl champion jacket.
Oh, yes.
That was just very much flex it out while you got it, baby.
Yeah, I remember that year too, Howie saying that he's going around, everyone's kind of complimenting him. And, it just makes him more motivated.
Do you think that Nick Sirianni will be wearing any Super Bowl merch?
Good question. I think Nick is a top of the drawer guy, right? So whatever, I don't think Nick puts as much thought into what he's packing. He typically has the Sixers thing or the Phillies thing at the Combine. I think Howie spends more time thinking about packing than Nick does.
But do you think that Nick spends more or less time than Doug did?
I think Nick spends less time than Doug did too.
Okay.
Yes. So my guess.
You don't think so?
Super Bowl merch? Maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm guessing no.
Okay.
I'm guessing no. We'll see.
We will see.
What about Howie?
No.
No.
He's done. So he's like Jalen. He's done celebrating that. He's got work to do.
I don't know if he's done celebrating it, but at least publicly, yes.
Yeah. So I want to get into the things that you want to learn from
Yeah.
Howie. Maybe we'll do a little bit of a role play later on in the episode. I know your favorite thing. And then you want to know if we think the combine is overrated.
I want to know if you think the combine is overrated.
Okay. Well, we can have that discussion.
Yes.
You think, well, you know what? Let's start with the injuries, Zach, because
Yes.
there have been some updates since we last spoke and since you and Fran spoke on Friday. What is the news?
So as Mike Garafolo reported, Nolan Smith torn triceps.
Wild.
Should be good for the start of training camp. It sounds like, but it's a long recovery here.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, it's obviously in the context of knowing that Brandon Graham just had this expedited recovery, but to know that it occurred in the beginning of February and it might keep him all the way out until the preseason. That's a long.
That is a long one. Now, as we all saw, and you saw firsthand in that post game locker room, he had some good pain. I want to say medication, good pain relief. I would put it because he was spraying that champagne, and then at the parade, Nolan Smith really seemed to be enjoying himself. But now he suffered the torn triceps. And, expect to be ready for the start of the season. So we'll see.
I mean, it explains why he was playing the lowest percentage of snaps
Yes.
he had played basically since the second half of the season.
Exactly.
In that game, and why Josh Sweat's snaps rose up so much, right? We were wondering why that was. This explains it.
That explains it.
Do you think that this injury changes anything for the way that the Eagles approach the offseason at that position?
Not at that position, but I am curious to see, and and this is something I wanted to ask you, is that there are a handful of players coming off injuries that we know of, and there's probably more, right? We know Cam Jerkins is having surgery. Landon Dickerson said clean out day, he's having surgery. I imagine there's other players who might be cleaning stuff up. Do you think the way Nick approaches the offseason program changes? Because a big thing last year was that they worked more during the spring than they did the year before when they were coming off the Super Bowl. And one of the things they said is it was a longer off season. Do you think now maybe they pull back a little bit more in the spring?
I would imagine so, especially if part of the reason was that their season ended earlier last offseason. I would think so. I also think, the Eagles have earned the benefit of the doubt in terms of workload in the offseason, whether that's the spring or the summer, given how well things turned out over the course of this season. Only one Week 1 starter not available in the Super Bowl, right? So as much as some of us might want to complain that they're not hitting, the second week of training camp, I think they've deserved the benefit of the doubt here.
But there was a major emphasis last offseason on conditioning, right? And so you just wonder, I wonder what training camp's going to be like, for instance. Yeah,
I think the conditioning will be a thing because don't tell Vic Fangio that just because the team went to the Super Bowl last year that he's not going to be able to play his guys 75% of the snaps, right? That's not going to fly.
No, Jalyx Hunt had that nugget.
Yes.
Was it on Pat Gowan's show or a different show? I apologize that I'm not crediting it correctly. But that after the parade preparation meeting, Vic Fangio met with the defense and told them the 22 points in the second half or whatever it was unacceptable.
Yes. Did you think that was in jest, or you think that was fully serious?
I don't think it was fully.
Maybe that's the beauty of Vic Fangio.
I don't think it was fully in jest. Yeah, I think that's part of what makes Vic Fangio Vic Fangio.
Okay, there you go. Anything else
from the injury front?
Newsy.
So since we spoke, Brandon Staley officially going to the New Orleans Saints. So Christian Parker remains, as Rich Hoffman put it in the newsletter today. And make sure you're subscribing to Rich's newsletter, the best newsletter in the city. He said that Kellen Moore is recreating the 23 Chargers without Justin Herbert, right?
Yes.
So
Well, you really got you with that line.
I thought that was a good line. I didn't think of it that.
You're
thinking that way.
You're gonna break just off that line.
But Brandon Staley was a good defensive coordinator with the Rams. I don't know if he was as good as it might have been framed nationally, but
that's how you framed it a week ago.
No, so if you saw some of the reports, it seemed like he was the architect of the Bears defense he was a part of too.
Okay.
Right, and that was more, I would imagine, a Fangio creation than a Brandon Staley creation. Nonetheless, I do think it was a good coordinator hire, and he has the head coaching experience. So Nakobe Dean, Cam Jurgens, Nolan Smith, Lennon Dickerson are 4 players that we know are getting offseason surgeries.
Okay. Let's talk about what the Eagles want to accomplish this week while they're in Indianapolis. Zach, you believe there are 3 things they need to leave Indianapolis knowing.
Yeah, well, there's more than 3, but there's 3 that I'm going to give you here.
Okay. Start with number 1.
It's a fun topic of conversation.
Okay.
Number 1, Zack Baun's market. I think it's essential that they come back from the combine knowing what it's going to cost to keep Zack Baun.
Explain to the uninitiated how they will go about doing that. What is this week like for Howie Roseman?
So you speak to agents of all the players. So you're allowed to legally speak to the players, the agents of the players on your team, right? What will it take to keep him? You're not supposed to be able to talk to the agents of other players, but everyone does, right? And so typically Zack Baun agent,
there are always ways around it. Yes.
Zack Baun's agent has a sense of what the marketplace is going to be for his client come free agency. The Eagles will know what Zack Baun's asking price is. They'll also, as we talked about with the walkaway number, they'll know how close their walkaway number is probably to Zack Baun's market. But I think it's imperative. If Howie said to me, Zach, I'm heading to Indy, what's one thing I need to accomplish when I'm there? I would tell him, you need to know what it's going to cost to keep Zack Baun, because I think the Zack Baun market influences the rest of the offseason for this reason too. For like Milton Williams is important. I would say Josh Sweat's obviously important. Obviously Mekhi Becton's important, but I think that if those players left, they know what they could play with the roster that they have. They have more internal replacements. If Zack Baun leaves a linebacker, it changes the entire complexion of the defense. Like we said, we don't know about Nakobe Dean's status. They don't have it. I mean, Zack Baun was a defensive player of the year candidate. There's a major delta between him and anyone else on the roster there. And I frankly think anyone you would sign in the free agent market. So it changes your defense. So it's imperative that you know what it will cost to keep Zack Baun.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, Howie's going to be having dinner this week with all different agents, right? He's going to be meeting with different teams. Like this is information gathering. He is someone who wants to be like the most informed person in the NFL information market. That's what this week is about. He will get to the bottom of that. And I think you're right about the Baun trickle down, because it's not as if, like, let's say they're willing to spend $17 million on Zack Baun. If they're not able to sign Zack Baun for that, they're not spending $17 million on a different linebacker.
Yes.
They're not spending $9 million on a different linebacker. They're going to reallocate that money in a much different way, right? Whether that is maybe they find a different premium position or whatever it is. I don't think that they're going to like change the way that they approach the linebacker position if they can't get Zack Baun. And then if they are able to get Zack Baun, then all of a sudden you've got $17 million that you are not going to spend at, whether it's like, let's say safety, right?
Yep.
Like if they don't sign Zack Baun, maybe you're thinking, okay, Trevin Merrick is a possibility because we're going to sign an ascending player at a position where we're not loaded to backfill for a linebacker. The trickle down there is much more interesting. And I think Howie will leave this week having a pretty good sense of the way that the Zack Baun thing is going to go, don't you?
I would. Now, things always develop during that week and a half in between, right? Like
a year ago, do you think that Howie left Indy thinking, I'm going to get Saquon?
I think he left Indy knowing what it would take to get Saquon, is my guess. Now,
I mean, it took him 2 hours, right?
His phone got checked. I don't think he was telling Saquon about the Penn State part.
No, of course not. Yeah.
No, I know. But if Hal was watching,
he knows the deal. Yeah, he knows the rules.
Exactly. Yeah. As you framed it well, like the last person who's going to violate those rules is Hal.
I think. Yeah.
But no, like for instance, James Bradberry a few years ago, the Eagles went into free agency thinking James Bradberry's market was going to be different. They went into free agency expecting C.J. Gardner's market to frankly be what it was. C.J. Gardner-Johnson had aspirations; it would be different. But for instance, you think back to our time covering the team. I think the Eagles were hopeful that they'd be able to sign Byron Jones back in 2020 when they left the combine, but then they saw that that price was going to be too high. So they had to go to plan B, which was Javon Hargrave. But the reason you're able to pivot, like when you're on the clock in free agency, is because you know what these prices are.
We've done that work, right?
Exactly. So you're very seldom kind of caught on day 3, like how the Eagles were in 2015, where they had all this extra money, and it's like, let's go sign DeMarco Murray, right?
A couple of things. First of all, let's say, the some of the top free agency rankings are out today.
Yes.
Milton Williams is top 5. Zack Baun and Josh Sweat are sort of consensus, also in the top 10. Between Zack Baun, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Mekhi Becton, which of those 4 do you think is most likely to have a different market than expected?
Great question.
So if we are expecting Milton Williams to be one of the 5 highest paid players in free agency, non-quarterback, whatever, Sweat and Baun to both get significant money, and Mekhi Becton to be getting like starting guard caliber money, $10 million or so. Which of those 4 do you think, whether it's much higher or much lower, which is most likely to surprise us or the Eagles?
I think I'll speak for myself here. I think Zack Baun's market's most likely to surprise me in terms of being lower than I think.
I think that's possible.
Yeah, because I think the league could look at it and say it's the perfect situation, right? He's 28. He's in his age 28 season. That he's not getting $20 million that Roquan Smith got, or even maybe it's closer to Patrick Queen last year in free agency than Tremaine Edmonds, right?
Yeah.
And I think, as I've been saying, I think the Milton Williams one. If you said to me that Milt is the highest paid unrestricted free agent this year, it wouldn't I don't want to say surprise me, but like I think that's within the range of possibilities here.
Yeah. Okay.
What about you?
I think that's probably right. I agree with that. I also think it's possible that Mekhi Becton has a less of a market than expected.
Okay. Yeah, you've. I don't want to say you've been fading. I don't want to say you've been fading Becton, but you've been more in the camp of like maybe Philly's overrating what Becton was this year.
It's not even what he was this year, just how replaceable that was.
Yeah.
Like, I think the lesson of signing Mekhi Becton the week of the draft for $5 million and him turning into a Pro Bowl caliber player is not. It's different than the Zack Baun lesson. I don't think that lesson is, oh, well, we need to keep Mekhi Becton. I think, to me, the lesson is we can turn talented players in this system into a starting caliber guard. Like, Jedrick Wills is a free agent this offseason. It's a very similar profile.
Yes.
He's not as physically imposing as Mekhi Becton is, but I think the template of let's bring in a first or second round caliber player who was a tackle, move him to guard with Stoutland, I think that's replicable.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think you can expect, Vic found this guy who's not really an inside linebacker and turned him into a defensive player of the year candidate. I think you can expect Vic is going to get more out of a guy at that position.
Yeah.
It's his specialty, right? But I don't think you can expect that level of play.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
That's one thing. The other thing I was going to ask is just about Baun. I don't remember what the question was. I'm trying to find it. Well, I'm lost.
Do you think that
worst host in the city?
No, best host in the city. Do you think there's a better chance that Zack Baun makes 18 plus or 13 and fewer?
I think there's a better chance he makes 18 plus.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah, but again, and I always say this, my soft spot, or I shouldn't say soft spot, my blind spot is because I cover the Eagles, okay? I tend to maybe overrate how good the good players are, and then, I have a good beat on, how bad that guy's significantly over. When Halapoulivaati Vaitai got that contract, again, I like Big V, but I was like, that's a major overspend. He's a replacement level player, I felt like, right? And then it's Zack Baun. I viewed Zack Baun. I'm like, I haven't seen a linebacker play like this in 13 years covering the team. And I just wonder if I'm overrating that. But to me, Zack Baun was a top 5 linebacker in the NFL. He's hitting the open market. He should be paid like a top 5 linebacker in the NFL.
We mentioned Big V. Like, who is the last player who left the Eagles in free agency who like made them regret it?
Regret what the way they played, or that they regretted letting go?
Regretted letting go.
I think, well, they regretted letting go C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but not based on the way he played in Detroit. I think they saw the way that materialized.
Who left the Eagles and looked like
who they
a
make
good
a bad
deal?
decision
Like,
about? Who do they make a bad decision about? It's a good question. Yeah, I mean,
as a veteran in free agency, it's hard to think of them.
I don't think Sayamalu. I think they had a good beat on who Sayamalu was. I don't think Hargrave. Probably, honestly, some of them. It's like Rasul Douglas is someone.
I know. I was thinking that too, but that's not the same thing. They that's roster
released him.
cutdowns. Yeah,
exactly. In the unrestricted market, maybe Nelson Aguilar, but his days were done.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't think there's anyone.
Now, listen, most free agent contracts turn out to be bad bets.
Yes.
And the Eagles have actually, like, I think, we talk a lot about their draft track record the last couple of years. Over Howie Roseman's tenure, their free agency track record relative to the rest of the league is much better than their draft track record. Now, the Bryce Huff one sort of stands out as a sore thumb there, but their free agency track record is really remarkable, actually. Mm-hmm. I remembered my other question.
Yes.
So if the trickle down of if they don't sign Baun, do you think that this means that we have talked about if with Baun and Milton and Sweat in particular, they're going to be thinking about racking up comp picks.
Yes.
Right? It's going to be part of their process. Do you think if they don't sign Zack Baun that they will sign a high-level free agent, or do you think that they will reallocate that money with trades? Or
I think they
released free agents.
Well, like as we spoke about on Friday's show, I do think the Eagles are going to explore Myles Garrett. Right? I think that, and we discussed that at the Super Bowl, you and I. I think that's going to be something. I'm not saying they're going to acquire him. I don't think Howie will just not call Andrew Berry about Myles Garrett. I expect that to happen. But yeah, if they don't sign Zack Baun, I think they look for the next Zack Baun. I think you'll hear me talk about Baron Browning a lot next week in our free agency discussions. I think Baron Browning is the profile player that they would look at.
Sir Baron von Browning.
Yeah, I don't see it that way.
I'm aware of that.
Okay. Okay.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll get back and find out what the second thing Zach thinks the Eagles need to leave Indianapolis knowing here on the PHLY Eagles show. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year. With early payout offers across the NBA and NHL, Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up. Use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get that $150 in bonus bets. Again, win or lose. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $100 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. This deal only lasts 2 more days, people. The 26th of February. So sign up. Use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I spoke about how we had the birthday party circuit on Saturday. I was driving in Horsham or that area, Warrington, and on my right hand side, I passed a TrueMark Financial Credit Union, and I say, "Reed, look, it's TrueMark." And the great thing, it's a true story, I swear to God. And
what was his reaction?
Well, I didn't tell him all the great things that TrueMark has to offer.
Okay.
But the reason that it's cool to see is like this isn't just any financial credit union. This is a local place. It's headquartered in Fort Washington,
Right near where Jamie's wife went to school.
Yes, yeah, right where Julia went to school. Jamie's wife went to school. So anywhere you go in this area, you're bound to find a TrueMark financial credit union. That's part of what I like about it. Something else I like about it, and I should have told Reed this, is that if your credit card balance is weighing you down. Now Reed doesn't have credit card balance, but and you want to pay it off faster with 0 interest until 2026. TrueMark Financial is offering 0 interest on balance transfers for 12 months, so all your payments can go toward reducing your balance or just covering your interest. Here's the play. Transfer your existing balance from another institution to a TrueMark Financial Visa credit card and take advantage of this amazing offer. But hurry, you have to apply by February 28th. Man, this has gone by fast. 4 more days from here. Whether you're interested in earning rewards, cash back, or simply prefer a low rate for everyday purchases with TrueMark Financial, you can choose the credit card that best fits your financial needs. Visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details and to apply today. TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to approval. 3% balance transfer applies. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate.
Zach, I think it's been about 370 days or so. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more.
Since?
Are we ready to close Parham Watch?
He signed with the Steelers, so
Yes.
yeah.
Do we keep it on?
No.
We can keep persisting. He might not make that roster. I think we could keep the watch open.
Well, Kellen Moore's not here anymore. That was part of the that was part of the connection.
The ham.
Yeah, I think down on Parham. Look,
Parham,
the Eagles,
part human.
The Eagles are in the tight end market. That actually brings me to my second thing, in part perhaps because they didn't bring in Donald Parham. But I liked him coming out of Stetson.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Actually, that doesn't sound like a kind of player you would have liked.
No, I liked him coming out of Stetson.
Okay.
Yeah. I in my mock draft today, I had all players from I had like 6 SEC guys and 1 Big Ten guy, and I felt bad about that. I actually in my original mock draft, I had a different first rounder from the ACC, but it conflicted so much with Fran's grade that I wanted to respect Fran's grade. But yeah, I mean, I do lean toward the big school players. It would have burned me last year with Quinyon.
Okay. What's number 2?
Number 2 is have a sense of what you're going to do with Dallas Goedert. And I say this, I respect I've received a few notes saying like the Dallas Goedert thing is a PHLY creation. Like this isn't being speculated elsewhere. We've talked about it. I saw a response to when Deniz put up the Flu World Order. Like you guys have Goedert way lower than it is.
I had him pretty high.
But this is the thing with Dallas Goedert. I'm not saying he's not going to be here next year, but he has no guaranteed money left on his contract, right? So one would presume that they're going to do something, whether it's restructure. Maybe they give him an extension. Maybe they they try to bring down his cap number this year. Maybe they seek to trade him. I don't think they're going to release him. If they released him, he would be by far the top tight end on the open market. But I bring this up because similar to the Zack Baun thing, those other players we discussed, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Mekhi Becton, if those players left, I think the Eagles have internal replacements ready. They don't have that with Dallas Goedert. If Dallas Goedert's back, you're bringing back every starting skill player. You basically bring back your entire starting offense, right? Because you're assuming even if Becton goes, Tyler Steen has the chance to step in. There's a chance all 11 players are back, or all 11 starters were on the team last year. Goddard's the big question. If Goedert goes, that's a major hole at tight end. So I think they need to know what they're doing with Goedert. Either restructure the deal, if there's a trade market for him. I don't think Goedert is back at the number that he's on now. I think he's going to want guaranteed money, and I think it's similar to Hassan Reddick last year, right? Hassan Reddick didn't have that guaranteed money beyond the season.
Yeah. The reason that I, of the three of us, am more convinced he's going to be back is just that given their window, like this is a Super Bowl caliber team, I don't think they're going to be in the business of letting a good player go for nothing.
Yeah.
Now, maybe there's a trade market that develops, but barring trading for your boy Kyle Pitts, like I think it's just the status quo is more likely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm expecting.
I do think that there's probably a restructure coming.
Yeah, so a restructure coming, and a restructure would be done presumably before the start of free agency. So
True.
you're leaving the combine with a sense of what you're doing with Dallas Goedert. Maybe Dallas Goedert's like, look, I want to be paid like a top 5 tight end in the league. When I signed the contract extension, he signed that deal in 2021. Right, it's 2025 now. He's at a different stage in his career. The tight end market hasn't changed like the guard market has, for instance, but Goddard's not where he once was in that market. So I think that there must be a decision made about Dallas Goedert. And the other thing, and look, you should all be subscribing to Fran's Draft Guide by now. Fran's doing an awesome job. He'll be in Indy for the full week, and we'll have a lot of updates on that draft guide once you get to standardized testing. Unlike some previous years, this is a really good tight end draft class. And, not to say the Eagles are going to draft a starting tight end this year, but there have been years in the past where it's like, ooh, the tight ends aren't particularly good. This year, I was listening to the draft show that you and Fran did. He likes Arroyo from Miami, right? Tyler Warren and Colton Loveland are considered first-round picks. Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, Mason Taylor from LSU. There's going to be 6-7 tight ends taken in the first 3 rounds this year.
Yeah, which is why, like, they have, to your point about figuring out what Goedert wants. I think the easiest solution is a 1-year deal essentially, where he gets guaranteed money. Yeah. They bring the number down a little bit, and they're able to approach the offseason as if they're trying to find his replacement. Long term. Exactly.
So and I think that's the best outcome, frankly, for both sides, unless Goedert views it like here's his chance to get paid.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what's number 3? Give us your last one.
Yeah, and then and the number 3, I wanted something more draft related, and that is the standardized testing for the edge rushers, right? Like I think so. The edge rushers perform on Thursday, and I think that's one where we'll have. It's considered the strength of this draft class, the edge rushers and defensive linemen. But the athletic testing for those guys can jump out. So if you're looking at it like there's 7-8 guys who athletically are marvels, right? Maybe that affects the way you view this offseason. Maybe you're saying like you're going to get a contributing edge rusher at 32. You don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think the testing, because edge rusher is a position where athletic testing really does matter, and teams do view that, arm length, things like that too, not just the athletic testing, the standardized testing.
Yeah, I think as actually we talked about with Fran the other day, it's probably the position where you would most lean towards traits over production, potentially. I don't think, though, that at 32, they're going to change their entire offseason plan based on the testing results of one position. No. Because there's, as you said, there's no guarantee. They're going to enter the draft having every spot filled in their mind.
Yes, but you want to, is this... So I picked edge rushers for the reason you mentioned. It is a combine position. It is considered the strength of this class, and it is a need for the Eagles. So you'll have more information about this edge rushing class coming out of Indianapolis than you have going into it.
Well, maybe one of the trickle-down effects of that is what you mentioned it before, but I'm surprised that this wasn't one of your 3, and that was
Brandon Graham.
No, what's the Myles Garrett market? What's the asking price?
That's a good point. That probably should be that. I mean, that should be number 1, frankly.
And I think this was the one part of the discussion you guys had on Friday that I would expand on is that what makes like the Myles Garrett situation a little bit different is there aren't going to be 31 bidders, right? It's not like he's on the open market.
Exactly.
If they trade him, he is going to have a say in where he goes.
100%.
And so, this is where, whether it's Howie putting the whisper in his agent's ear or finding out that this is one of 4 places he's willing to go, like that's going to change it. And so like the winner's curse of free agency doesn't all the way apply here because it is probably a shallower pool that you're waiting in, and if like this is really where he wants to go, he can force his way here.
You're absolutely right.
And then it's just like, okay, what's equal value?
Do you put anything into AJ Brown's comments?
Oh, I didn't see the AJ Brown's comment.
Yeah, AJ was asked about the offseason. I should credit the show that it was on. I forget the show that it was on. But he said the guy he wants him to get is Myles Garrett, right? Like outspoken about it. And I don't think he's gonna be the last one to say that. I think there's gonna be like open recruitment from the Eagles about Myles Garrett might be the best defensive player in football. The Browns are saying they're not going to trade him. Myles Garrett has been pretty clear he's not going to play for the Browns. Like you said, there's a limited market here because he's going to want to sign an extension.
Right. It's somewhere that he's going to be able to sign. Like he's going to have to be willing to sign.
Exactly. And it's also, frankly, a team that their time frame corresponds with trading for an age 29 player. Because, if you were I don't know, pick a team here, the New England Patriots, you're probably not trading for Myles Garrett.
Sure.
Right? That's a team that has a lot of cap space.
Nor does he want to go there.
Yeah. So that factors into it too. And when I speak to Howie, one of the things I want to get a sense of is when they've done these trades in the past, and I talked about this on Friday's show, Jason Peters, AJ Brown, they made a big offer for Jalen Ramsey, where there are certain parameters that need to be hit from an age profile perspective, right? From a position profile perspective, because Myles Garrett would check off every box except the age profile.
So let me ask you this. Would you rather have your boy James Pierce Jr. and Zack Baun, you re-sign Zack Baun at $18 million, or you trade 32 for Myles Garrett and you sign Tyrell Dodson or
without
Kaiser
a doubt,
White?
Myles Garrett, without a doubt. I mean, I think, without a doubt. Now, this is the thing. I think it's going to require next year's first. But this goes to what you were saying about who are you bidding against, right? And that's where him having a say in the market is different. And that's where also, and we talked about this at the Super Bowl, the Khalil Mack market, or that's not necessarily precedent because he was 3 years younger at the time.
Yeah. When you say you think it will require next year's first, you mean in addition to this year's, or
yes,
instead
exactly.
of? You think it'll take 2 firsts?
Well, there was talk of that because that's what it costs for Khalil Mack.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take 2 firsts.
I wouldn't, and I said on the show, I wouldn't do it because I get worried about trading future first without knowing. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the gamble you take, but I would much rather trade the first this year when you know where it is, who's available. Then like if Jalen Hurts goes down week 1, right? You could be looking at a top 10 pick.
I mean, or you win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, or that. Yes. Because of Tanner McKee. I see what you say. Okay.
I don't think it's going to take 2 firsts.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I mean, if it does,
it could also be 32 and a second that
next
turns
year
into a first.
I would trade.
Win the Super Bowl.
I would trade 32 this year and a second next year. I would do that. I just wouldn't trade the first next year.
Would you do a second this year and the first next year?
I'm less inclined to do that. I mean, Andrew Barry's a good negotiator, but I'm less inclined to do that.
Would you do a second this year, a second next year, and Adam Berry?
I like Adam, but yes, I think Adam's a very nice man. I think Myles Garrett provides more value to the franchise than Adam. Adam, if you're watching, no disrespect, I assume Adam would agree. Right? But in any respect, let me ask. Now, all joking aside, if it's a first, if it's a second, and Tanner McKee,
a first, a second, and Tanner McKee,
no, okay, because Tanner McKee's too valuable.
Well, yeah, that's. I mean, a first and a second and Tanner McKee. Yeah, I think that's too much.
Okay.
Although that's interesting.
I mean, look, they're supposedly in the market for
about all it takes.
You think what?
McKee straight up.
McKee straight up. Yeah, could you imagine? But yeah, that should have been my number one. I was thinking more stuff with the Eagles roster, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The Myles Garrett market, I'm not dismissing it because I think it's a real thing for the Eagles.
We will talk about this next week, but early on, are there any other players who you are attuned to as potential trade acquisitions?
I'm not there yet. I mean, I'll hear more stuff this week.
Give us a little behind the scenes on a ZB over the next 48 hours. What kind of how we're going to get our ear to the grindstone?
Yeah. So actually, I was doing this math with my wife. I've spent over 2 months of my life in Indianapolis for the combine.
Okay. We're having this conversation with my friend Joe the other day, he was really upset about the fact that like you're supposed to brush your teeth for 90 seconds every time, morning and night. He's like adding it up. And he's like, that's like, it's like 2 weeks of the whole year you're brushing your teeth. Isn't that too much? Like, no, not really. Yeah, no. It's 90 seconds at a time. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I mean the 2 months in Indy, that's a lot, but like, I don't know.
Did you?
No, actually, honestly, I would. It is often too much time in Indianapolis, but
I like the combine, although it's, as one job turned to another job, right? The role of it changed, like the way I need to do it changed. When I was at the Inquirer, I had to write 2 stories from the combine every day. So I was there for 6-7 days, and you're picking out a prospect that day and writing about it. That's not necessarily what the job is here. But so beyond this, so tomorrow is the coaches and the GMs. That's what Tuesday is. And I'll talk to Howie. I'll talk to Nick. I'll talk to some other coaches. Now, Kellen Moore is not going to be talking to media outside of New Orleans. He's not going to be on a podium tomorrow. But I'll catch up with Jonathan Gannon. I'll catch up with Shane Steichen.
You gonna be right about that?
Okay, I'll catch up with I might write about Gannon. And then I'll catch up with Andy Reid, and then
honestly, I'm actually curious what Jonathan Gannon's reaction to the Eagles' Super Bowl defensive performance is.
I wonder if I should ask that. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to tailor my questions more to Phoenix.
I know, but I think that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, and then so that's Tuesday. And the past 5 years, I've outside of 2021 because of COVID, I was at the combine with Bo, and Bo knows how to work the nighttime circuit. You're
please.
Oh yeah. Look, you're good at the bar.
Please.
Yeah. But I
think they'll be fine without me this week.
That's part of the combine. And I'll be meeting up with different people from either Philly, elsewhere around the country, and then you run into people who work for different teams, and there's chatting there.
Try to get those 45 seconds of FaceTime at Barclay Prime. Make it all worth it at 2:45 in the morning.
Not Barclay Prime 47. Yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever it is.
And then typically I'm there for a few more meals than I'm at this year. I have a few things scheduled this year that will be keeping me from Cafe Patachu, for instance. I'm not there as long as this is the shortest I've ever been at the combine in 12 years. So I'm a little self-conscious about that. But
why?
Why
are you self-conscious about it?
I mean, if we want to open up a vein here, because a lot of it's playing defense, and you never know what you never know what you're going to hear. You never know who you're going to talk to. I was walking down the street last year and chatted with Kevin Stefanski for 10, 15 minutes, and like you never know when these interact. So the less time you're there, the fewer these interactions you have are. But we have a daily show.
You got a life to live. You got other stuff to do.
It's mainly we have a daily show, and I'm trying to make sure our shows are strong. It is true we have a shorter period of time this year in between the end of the season and the start of free agency, and so I feel like there aren't as many. Not to say there have been throwaway shows in the past, but like every show is really valuable.
I thought these were the shows you liked. I thought this season were the throwaway shows to you.
No. Look, every show is an opportunity.
Haven't had a good show since Brandon Brooks was here.
That's not true. The draft we did. The draft was good shows.
Okay. All right, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And on the other side, maybe we'll do a little bit of role play. Boy, is it time for me to tell you about Glatt Hair Restoration. If you have noticed your hair is thinning or falling out, or considered a hair replacement or hair loss prevention procedures, Glatt Hair Restoration is the place to do it. Their board-certified experts have performed thousands of hair and plastic surgery procedures Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Glatt Hair by Morgenstern Medical utilizes leading-edge treatments for prevention and restoration, such as laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, and PRP and stem cell restoration. Caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be emotional and challenging. They're here to help make your experience simple and stress-free. Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. Regain your confidence with Glatt Hair by Morgenstern Medical. Learn more at GLATHAIRMCTR.com. That's GlattHairMCTR.com.
So I have a little confession here. I'm all for subscribing to every media outlet I can. I want to support media outlets the same way I want you to support being a diehard, right? But sometimes when I'm doing a story on someone and it's from an out of town, and I'm trying to read an out of town article, a place that I won't go to very frequently, I might sign up for a promotional rate, okay? And then I might forget about it. Well, the place to turn, the place that will help me with that is Rocket Money. Because Rocket Money finds subscriptions that you forget about, or any you paid for twice and didn't realize. Rocket Money can cancel the subscription for you that was otherwise time-consuming or confusing to cancel. Rocket Money alerts you to an increase in subscription price as well. You can see all your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For any you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with a few taps. Rocket Money, it's a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users worldwide and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 per year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
Howie. Zach Berman from ALLPHLY.com. How do you guard against sentimentality with the way that you approach this offseason with all the guys who are free agents?
Yeah, Zach, it's something that has been a weak spot of mine, if I'm being honest with you. And I think back, you draft these guys, you know their families, you see all they invest in the organization, and it's hard. It's the hardest part of my job is that I admit I do grow too emotional to it. But I think we're all byproduct of our experiences. And I think when I look at the years after we've made the Super Bowl in the past, one of the mistakes we've had is maybe we clung a little too much to thinking that the group that was so special the year before was going to be special the following year. So it's the hardest part of this job for me. But if I learn from my experiences, I realize some of the things that I could do better is not be so emotionally attached to the players that invest so much in this organization.
Howie, Olivia Reiner from the Inquirer, with Zack Baun, I imagine it's difficult to unpack, Vic being able to get that out of him versus what he was able to give. What kind of market do you expect for Zack Baun?
Olivia, you wrote about 3 or 4 stories this year that were just outstanding. Now all your stories are good, but you had, I think back to your CJ
What
Gardner.
a backhanded compliment. How dare you, Howie?
I think back to your CJ Gardner-Johnson story during the Super Bowl week. That was really well done. Your Darius Slay pieces as well. So and you asked about Zack Baun. I read a really good Zack Baun piece by you back in September. I remember when you spoke to his high school coach. So the Zack Baun market, look, you have to grow in this job, and you're not the same as you were 5 years ago. And I understand that linebacker is a hot button position in this city. And some of the criticism we've gotten for it has been fair, and some of it might be overstated. But I think you have to look at each case individually. And Zack Baun is a special player, and so we can't necessarily look at it based on how we've traditionally invested in that position. I know Zach Berman, you obsessively, weirdly keep track of everything I've ever said, and you keep repeating how there's some positions where you need to trust your player development. Well, I think when you have a special player like Zack Baun, it requires special circumstances. So we'll have a walkaway price. We always do. But I want to tell not just you, Olivia, but every Eagles fan out there who is listening to this and watching this, we are going to do everything we can to make sure that Zack Baun stays with Philadelphia for the foreseeable future.
Howie, Jeff McClain from the Inquirer. Did you fake getting hit in the head with a beer can?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that, Jeff. No, Jeff, look. Did I fake it? What kind of question is that? I mean, is that what people are saying out there, that I faked it? Man, that hurt. But I'll tell you what. I bleed for this city. I bleed for this city. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. You know this, Jeff. I mean, well, look, you've been covering my entire time here. But no, that thing hurt, but it was worth it. I'll tell you this, Jeff. If the price for having a parade up Broad Street is getting hit in the head, sign me up for that every year.
Howie, Dave Zangaro. Last offseason, there was a lot of work done to change the coaching staff. How did you feel about the way that the process went replacing Kellen Moore this time around?
Yeah, Dave, I think our process was sound. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes that I don't think always comes to the public. And, we did have a search and we spoke. I can tell you this, there's a lot of really good candidates out there. But also in this case, look, with Kevin Patullo, it's kind of like when you sign your own free agent. You've lived with them, you've married them, right? I mean, it's like being set up on a date compared to compared to marrying someone who you've been dating for a few years. And Kevin Patullo's job interview, frankly, has not been. It was not what happened the week after the Super Bowl. Kevin Patullo's job interview is the past 4 years here, and we've gotten to know Kevin well, and we are confident that Kevin can do it. But I also want to emphasize that that's Coach Sirianni's decision. That's not mine. I know people say that's me, and look, I have input, but that's Coach Sirianni's decision, and Coach Sirianni trusted Kevin implicitly.
Howie, John McMullen, when you have so many players on your team who helped you win a Super Bowl, is it difficult to sort of guard against sentimentality when you're trying to deciding whether to re-sign them or not?
Yeah, John, I answered that a few minutes ago. I think Zach asked me that question. So I would just tell you to revert to the transcript on that one.
Jimmy Kempski from Philly Voice. Where is the draft strong this year?
So Jimmy, look, I want to be careful about saying this because, if you look in your archives, I said 2017 was a historic running back draft class, and it didn't necessarily work out like that for us. And in 2019, I said it was a historic defensive tackle draft class. I'm not going to say anything's historic anymore. It's similar to that line I used about the quarterbacks. You have to learn from your experience. I think there's good players at a lot of positions, but clearly, we love watching the line of scrimmage. We watch it every year, and I think there's a lot of really good players on the line of scrimmage this year. You know me. I mean, I always watch my Gators, and man, every week those Gators were playing. They saw a top edge rusher seemingly every week in the SEC. There's a guy on Ole Miss who the Gators didn't get to keep. That's the NIL world that we live in now.
Howie, Zach Berman from ALLPHLY.com. On Wednesday, September 29th, you said that Mekhi Becton, I don't know. I got nothing. And scene.
Yeah, well, so Zach, I mean,
I got nothing.
You might be wrong from time to time. September 29th was a Sunday. We played against Tampa Bay that day. That's a game I like to forget. It's a game you probably won't forget, Zach. I mean, you'll remind me of that for the next few years.
Zach, Howie, do you seriously? How have you felt that winning a Super Bowl a second time has changed your competitive zeal? Is it? Have you found the second to be different than the first?
Yeah, Zach. Look, this isn't the time for reflection, right? I mean, there's something that I always say is that if you if you stop and you're impressed with yourself, you're going to get kicked in the ass. And we're not going to be caught doing that. I know that you're always thinking about these books, right? There's a lot of chapters left in my book, Zach. So no, there's going to be a day when I'll sit back and I'll reflect, but that time is not now. What I will tell you is that when you feel that confetti and you taste that cigar, man, you want that again, and you'll do anything to get that again. And so, if anything, this Super Bowl's made me more motivated. And the problem with that is we're 6 weeks behind. Like the Indianapolis Colts and Chris Bauer, they didn't make the playoffs, right? We're they've had 6 weeks to prepare for this, right? So, we have a lot of catching up to do.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah,
that's it.
All right, that was fun. What's
You're very good at playing Howie.
Yeah,
up here.
I will tell Howie this. I think I've told him this before. It's probably freaked him out, but I've spent more time thinking about Howie than I care to admit.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I
think you're proud. I think you're proud of how much you've spent thinking. How much time you spent thinking about Howie.
Because I'll put it this way: for as much as the audience thinks I think about him, like multiply that by 10, right?
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I can only. There are some times when I hope you're not thinking about him, but other than that,
all right. Let me ask you this: Combine, is it overrated? It's become. I mean, even in our
what sense?
In this sense, right? Wait, why are you getting so low?
No, just.
I thought that was a height joke.
No. It's because it started to drop.
Okay.
And it was a funny visual gag.
So, some of these coaches, the Kyle Shanahans and the Sean McVays of the world, they've stopped going to the combine, right? And they think it's become too much of a circus, and then a lot of the data you can find actually now with GPS tracking. Obviously, interviews and health are important, but there's different ways to do it, and that it's turned into this television event. Wright Thompson did a great piece in 2019 where he was talking to like coaches and GMs, and I think one said that like we all realize that we're just characters in the NFL's TV show when we're here, right? So the actual utility of the combine. Has it passed us, or do you still think, Fran Duffy, the best draft analyst in the business, like there's
not
so
your favorite?
Oh, that's not true. That there's so much that can be, but Fran and I have had some healthy disagreements on prospects this year. That there's some stuff you can glean, or there's so much you can glean that it is of significant value.
I think it depends entirely on what your on first of all who you are, if you're in the media or if you're a team.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you take everything with a grain of salt. I think the days of thinking that, Darius Hayward Bay's 40-time shoot him up to the top 10.
Yeah.
I think the market has corrected itself on that front.
But would Jordan Davis have been the Eagles' pick in 14 if the combine didn't exist? Like if
yeah, I mean, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I think all of that context matters.
Mm-hmm.
I think if your question is, do the results matter? Yeah, of course they do. I think it's still very important to contextualize all of these guys athletically. I mean, like the conversation you guys had on Friday about Jalen Walker, where you sort of like skipped over what Fran said, that he didn't think that he didn't look special athletically, and you just said, well, you think he's special athletically?
Yeah.
Like now you can actually get some results on that front. And as Fran would tell you, the standardized medical results matter a lot. And I think from like a GM standpoint, being where all the agents are, and from the information perspective, all of that stuff matters. Having everybody in the same place. So yeah, I don't know that I think it's overrated. I just think it's the market has made it what it is.
So I was thinking about this recently. The Eagles.
Thanks for watching on Fast, by the way. Check out the rest of this episode on allphly.com.
The Eagles' best draft probably in the past 5 years, okay, was 2021 when it was Devontae Smith the first round, Landon Dickerson second round, Milton Williams third round. Now, granted, it's easier to hit on your first and second round pick when you're drafting at the top of those rounds than it is later on. But that's a year when the combine didn't exist that year, right? And the Eagles didn't have the.
But they had the test results
from the pro days. Yeah.
Right.
So if the league didn't descend on Indianapolis, would it have a material effect on the way teams do their business?
Yes, it would have an effect, but I don't think
would have a negative effect.
I think it makes things easier. I mean, you're standardizing everything. Yeah, you have better data. I don't know. You trying to abolish it?
No. Look, I want more. I want more events. I want more opportunities to speak to these guys. I want more opportunities to see people. Yeah. So definitely not about. I mean, look, February. My life is as I know it. It revolves around the NFL calendar. You know, February, I go to the combine. March, I go to the owners' meetings. Right. April's the if that didn't happen, like I would kind of feel like what's that? What
Don't you have other things
like
in your life?
Pavlov's dog is that the expression?
But
what's Pavlov's dog? What's the Pavlov's dog thing?
The bell.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exactly what I'm saying. If I wasn't going to the owners' meetings next month, like it would get to that week, and I would like feel like what's going on here. You know, I'd get like thirsty or something, right? What?
It's a tough way to live.
I think it's a wonderful way to live. It's a matter of it's a matter of perspective. I think it's a wonderful way to live. Yeah. Anyways, it's what I enjoy.
Okay. What are you going to be doing on the flight tonight?
Writing.
What are you going to be writing?
Some notes for the combine for PHLY.com and some other stuff if I get to it. Although I don't have an internet subscription and I don't want to buy the internet, so it makes it a little tough. We'll have to figure that out. It's a short flight, so I don't know. Maybe I'll read instead, but then I'll get to the hotel and I'll do work tonight.
What are you reading these days?
A few different different books. Look, I am reading Mike Sealski's Magic in the Air.
Okay,
that's a good one. But there's a few I don't want to say not self-help books, but like books of that ilk. That
is it the AJ Brown book?
No, I already read it in Interaction, so it was good.
Okay,
it was good. No, some other stuff. Some stuff could help me for the show. Some stuff could help me in life, right?
Why are you so scared to say what it is?
Because I don't want to open up a can of worms. So
I'm worried. I'm worried about what this book is.
Yeah. No, we don't need to get into that. Your review of Friday.
Deal?
What's it? No, Art of the Deal? No. It's ridiculous. No. Your review of Friday's show.
My review of Friday's show?
Mm-hmm.
It was fine.
Thanks, Bill. Okay.
I thought you were a little nasally. You sound better today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mailbag show. It's fine. Big creative lift for you guys.
Okay. All right. Look, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I thought the Jalen Walker conversation was funny.
Why? Because you thought I glossed over because
yeah, I thought you basically didn't listen to what he said.
I listened to exactly what he said. I think Jalen Walker is I don't have to just.
But I also do. I mean,
he doesn't have to have Nolan Smith athleticism, but I think Jalen Walker moves well. I think Jalen Walker's a versatile player. I think Jalen Walker can play in different spots. This is top 10 player.
We don't need to relitigate positionless players, but I do think the lesson of Zack Baun is not get a positionless player. It's find his correct position.
Okay. I think that if there's someone who has a skill set who can help you in different ways, then it's like what Professor Shellman talks about, how you can play in the 5-man front. Zack Baun can,
sure,
he can do different things, sure. Right? I actually think that
I don't have a strong Jalen Walker opinion yet, so I'm not willing to bag on you for him just yet.
I'm sure you're on Fran's side on James Pierce.
I don't have a strong opinion yet. Okay. I haven't developed strong opinions.
Someone did remark to me. They're like, they watched the draft show on Thursday and then our show, and they're like, They're like, Bo is like a character in 2 different movies. Seriously.
Well, it's a different show.
You spend
It's
the whole
supposed to be a
draft show
different
like
show.
building up Fran, and like everything is like the brilliance of Fran, and then you get to me, and it's like, yeah. The person was like,
they're 2 different job assignments.
I don't know about that, but the person's like,
I'm
man,
a positionless host, you know. One I'm a linebacker, one I'm an edge rusher.
I got a message. The person listened to both shows back to back, and it's like, man, he was like starring in 2 totally different TV shows.
Listen, all of a sudden I'm in on positionless players, I guess.
Yeah. So
Some super chats. Fresh Prince says, read the A.J. Brown trade in 2022. The Eagles traded the 18th pick and the 101st pick to the Titans. That value is almost exactly equivalent to the 16th pick. Can you name the 16th pick in the 2022 draft?
22 draft. So Traylon Burks was not 16, right?
Burks was 18.
Burks was 18. Kyle Hamilton was 15. So was it
Dotson.
Kenyon Green?
Was it Dotson?
Was it Jahan Dotson? Dotson or Kenyon Green, I would say.
I'm guessing Dotson since he's asking the question.
Yeah.
E. Roses, where are the combos on your snack rankings? Combos are like bad, way towards the bottom.
Yeah, I actually know what they are. I'm not ignorant to this,
Combos are
but
gnarly.
I haven't had a combo.
Yeah, those are, way towards the bottom.
Yeah.
By the way, bad news. Remember the new character on the show, the pregnancy pillow. Unfortunately, pregnancy pillow, we left it in the hotel at the wedding this weekend. So Rachel had to order a new one.
Sorry to hear it. How was the wedding?
It was nice.
Good.
Yeah. Nice family event. Oh, it was John Dotson. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good work, Bo. Well done.
Grace. Super chat. She's saying, spill about the book, ZB. You got to do it now.
I know, Grace. I appreciate it. Grace, it was so nice to meet you out in Los Angeles. I appreciate our correspondence. I'm not at a position yet to discuss this. When the time is right, I will be ready to share more information. I just don't have much for you at this moment.
Wow.
What? But I appreciate the
basically
contribution.
flipping her the bird.
I'm not flipping her the bird. There's some things you can discuss, there's some things you can't. I'm not at a position to discuss that at the moment.
Is it the joy of sex?
What?
Super chat from Kirk Adkins, who says, where is your stance on taking a quarterback in the later rounds? Where do we rank Will Howard in this class?
So actually, Bo's actually done a lot of data on late round quarterbacks. So I'll cede the floor to you.
Well, yeah, I think if you have a surplus of picks, it's worth taking a shot. The surplus value, if you can draft a backup quarterback in the late rounds, is fantastic. But the hit rate is remarkably low. It is, I think the list of quarterbacks drafted in the 5th round and beyond who have gone on to become starting quarterbacks in the last 10 years is like Tyrod Taylor and Brock Purdy. And there's maybe one more in there, but it's extremely rare.
Yeah, and regarding Will Howard, I actually think the lesson from Tanner McKee, now Will Howard's a little different. He played at K-State for 3 years, is that there has to be a reason why that quarterback's available late in the draft, right? And so to me, like if you're the starting quarterback on the national championship team and you're throwing to the number one, you're throwing to the guy who might be the number 1 pick 2 years from now, and another first round pick in Mekhi. And then, you have Judkins and Henderson as your running backs, and you have, your offensive lines full of draft picks. Like, why are you available late in the draft? In Tanner McKee's case, I think probably he was brought down in part because of the team that he played for. So you have to find, it's not, if it was easy, then everyone would do it, but you have to find some type of inefficiency. And I think that's typically the case for any late round pick. And it's something that Joe Banner's talked about. Like, you're not gonna outsmart the rest of the draft on like the starting linebacker from Georgia, right? So,
well, you say that, but Nakobe Dean.
No, I'm talking about like 6th, 7th round,
okay,
right? So I'm talking about day like late day 3. So in the case of Jalen Mills, for instance, Jalen Mills was dealing with an injury. There was off the field issues. Sometimes, for instance, a player's knocked because they're undersized, right? And so there are things you can typically find, like, TJ Edwards, he was undrafted because of his 40 time. So you have to find, Like if I'll put it this way, if there's a starter from a big program who plays a lot of snaps and he has great measurables, he's not just gonna surprisingly be on the board. You have to find why that player is available. So sometimes it's a small school guy, but you have to find the reason why that guy's available.
CDP says, if you knew someone that had their marriage ruined by Steve Smith, would you recommend they take it public on Twitter with embarrassing evidence? I'm actually not aware of this story.
I am aware of this story.
I'm reading it now.
Yeah, I am aware of this story, actually. Yeah, no, I think some things are better left behind closed doors, and I imagine this is one of them. So
Vince checking in says, I think Grace was asking about what book you are reading now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I thought that, that's what she was doing.
Oh,
I thought you were still obfuscating about that.
Oh, no,
she's not asking about a book
Sorry,
project.
Vince.
She's asking, she was paying the money. She wants to know about the book that you're reading. Spill the beans. She's a paying customer.
I know.
She wants that pizza.
I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on that one.
We got to know.
No, it's a book about like how to deal with.
Wouldn't it be easier to just say the name of the book?
No, because it will create a whole can of worms that's not necessary.
We're gonna find out eventually. You might as well rip the Band-Aid off. It's 70 minutes into the show. Most people aren't making it this far.
It's a book. I read this book called Let Them. Okay? I'll leave it at that.
That's it?
Yes.
And so what? This is a sequel to that? What?
Or
this is the book?
No, the book's called Let Them.
Let Them.
Let Them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this is going to be a whole thing now?
No.
This could have just, you could have just like said this in passing and it never would have been a big deal. And then now it's because you have tried to hide it. The Let Them theory, a life-changing tool that millions of people are talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book.
All right. Last super chat from Rob. This is a good way to end the show. What is the most enduring image of the 2024 Eagles?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's the locker room scene, right? It's being in the locker room, for sure. It's definitely being in the locker room. I think for fans, it's probably Cooper DeJean's pick 6, maybe the snow game, right, or like something, or Saquon's backwards jump. But for me, like I was with my brothers yesterday, and it was the first time I'd seen them since the Super Bowl, and they had asked me like the most memorable part of the Super Bowl, and I said for me it was definitely the locker room and the post-game party, like being, getting that type of exposure. Yeah, what about you?
Well, I think if we're talking a specific still image, I think like sort of the Howie with the cigar and the cut on his forehead is kind of like the image. I think, if you're talking play, it's probably the Cooper DeJean pick 6. Although, actually, it might just be the shot of the Saquon backwards jump.
Yeah,
that could be the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Are you worried now about this whole thing?
I just didn't see why I had to. What book are you reading now?
I'm not reading a book at the moment. I need to pick up.
You're not reading a book? Oh, you should always be reading something.
Okay. Thanks, Dad.
I mean,
honestly, the books I'm reading are books with Casey.
That's very nice. Okay.
So there you go.
Okay. What book you reading with Casey?
We just finished The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was good. And he picked up this new book from the library at school, which it's just not that good. It's just not that good. We gotta up our game a little bit. But
well, please report back to us.
I will.
Okay.
All right. I guess that'll do it for this episode.
Yeah. So tomorrow,
I feel like you're on edge now.
No. Tomorrow I will be in Indy. We'll have stories on allphly.com. It might be a story on gophnx.com. But I would say we'll have updates, throughout the day on social, on our YouTube channels, and really, I'm not there for very long this year, but if I can amplify anything, I want it to be Fran Duffy. Fran is on the scene Monday to Monday, full week, and he'll have all updates, insight, everything you need to know about the draft. We're so lucky to have him here at the All-City Network and at PHLY in particular.
So, a step-by-step guide on how to stop letting other people's opinion, drama, and judgment impact your life will set you free from the exhausting cycle of trying to manage everything and everyone around you. So you're basically, this is how you can handle me better?
I didn't say that. I did not say that at all.
But that's why you were afraid to mention it.
It's a book that came recommended, and so I read it. That's all. Yeah.
Recommended by whom?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're already way beyond where we.
I mean, frankly, I think this is a good thing for you to internalize. Maybe you don't have to read every single comment.
Okay, yeah,
right?
You're right. It wasn't suggested for that, but yeah, that is beneficial.
Wouldn't that be the lesson?
That is beneficial. Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Think about all the time you could get back.
You're right.
By just focusing on yourself.
Well said. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles show. We will be back tomorrow, 2:00. Jamie and I will be here to start the show. We'll hopefully hear from Zach after Howie Roseman.
And Nick Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni.
Yep.
Yeah. And Fran Duffy. And now you better come back with a scoop now.
Why?
Well, you're going out to Indy. Let's get a scoop.
I know. It's a lot of
pressure.
pressure.
Scoop.
I've 2.5 fewer days than I'm used to. So.
Well, that means you got to go 2.5 times as hard.
I will, but well, you know what? I have something. I have a story I'm working on Wednesday that I'm actually excited to report back to the listeners and viewers about and write about on allphly.com. And I think it'll show a lens to an important part of the organization that probably deserves some attention.
Good tease.
Yep.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Thanks to Julia for making it happen. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.